Hey, everybody. Welcome to All In, episode number 2. This week, I interviewed Tammy Toft. You're going to love this. Tammy is making a difference in the lives of people caught up in the sex trade industry. Tammy and her husband Brett, like Debbie and myself, and more than 20 other couples, are funded by the Foursquare Missions Global Missions Fund. Wanted to thank you for your generosity, your prayers, your support for sponsoring people like us to go forth and make disciples of all nations. Now, enjoy the podcast. You're listening to All In, Living the Mission of God. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you fulfill the mission of God in your life and around the world. I'm your host, Jeff Roper. Well, today I have with me a dear friend of mine, Tammy Toft. Tammy and her husband, Brett, are Foursquare missionaries serving in Tallin, Estonia. In addition to helping pioneer the Foursquare Church in Tallin, as well as pioneering the Foursquare movement within the country of Estonia, Tammy and her husband, Brett, have launched a ministry called Serve the City that mobilizes volunteers to express the love of Jesus to the city in very practical ways. And one of the reasons I've asked Tammy on to the show today is to interview her about a ministry that she's directly involved in and responsible for. It's called the Butterfly Project, that helps women who are caught up in the sex trade industry. So Tammy, welcome. Glad to have you with us today.
Hi, Jeff. It's really good to be with you today.
It's wonderful to hear your voice. So tell me, where are you at right now?
Right now, we're in Gothenburg, Sweden. Brett and I, my husband and I, we are taking a little bit of a trip around Scandinavia, meeting up with different pastors who are either starting up new churches or considering becoming Foursquare. And we're having a great, great time.
Wonderful. I would imagine you're there with my dear friends Mike and Brona.
That's exactly where we are.
Wonderful. I love those guys. What wonderful people. Just thoroughly enjoy being with them. So I'm jealous that I don't get to be able to be there with you, enjoying Gothenburg in the summertime. I've been there several times in the depth of winter, and it's much prettier in the summertime.
Well, I'll greet them for you.
Please do. Please do. Well, Tammy, tell me about the Butterfly Project.
Okay, the Butterfly Project was something that just came out of my heart about 5 years ago. And in my opinion, it was just something that was supposed to be very small, very simple, and just some way to reach out to these women who I had such a heart for and wanted to help so badly. But I didn't really have the skills, and I didn't feel equipped to do it, but it was on my heart and I could not shake it. So I left it up to God and put it in his hands. And at a certain point, he just started opening doors for me. And the next thing I knew, there was a much bigger project on my plate than I had anticipated. But everything that he called me to do, or every door that he opened, he provided everything I needed to make it happen. So what we do in the Butterfly Project is we worked for a long time. We worked with an existing rehabilitation center in Tallin, Estonia. And we would take one woman per month at the end of her rehab, and we would take her through a professional makeover. And when I say professional, I mean two things. One, we have professional staff that do all of it. I can't personally, I'm not gifted to do these things. So I had professional hairdressers, professional makeup artists, and professional fashion stylists who would pick out the clothes. And in the other sense of professional, I mean that we would dress the women so that they would be dressed appropriately for a job interview and thus be prepared for, this next phase of their life. And being able to go out and have all the confidence that any other woman had who didn't have the problems to overcome that they did. Because having the right professional look about them, also it helps them on the outside to look and feel professional, but it also helps them on the inside, just gives them that extra little edge and helps them to feel more just as prepared and ready to step into that interview and have all the success that they need. So we started out doing that, and then it has just, over the 5 years that we've been doing it, it's evolved into a lot more.
Wow. Now tell me more. What else? When you say it's become a lot more, tell me what that looks like. Paint a picture for me.
Okay. Well, first we started doing awareness programs in high schools because we just felt like if we can make young girls aware of what's going on around them in their very own city, then maybe we could help put a stop to this horrible thing before it even gets started. If girls could be aware of what potential pimp or madam is going to, how they're going to approach them, how they're going to try to entice them into this, how they're going to try to trick them or manipulate them, then maybe we can help put a stop to it before the girl even has to go through anything like rehab. And that was very successful. And we had a lot of schools that were contacting us and asking us to do this. So we're still doing that actually.
Okay,
But
now these are public schools, right?
public schools, private schools. Started out doing it at our very first one was at the school that my kids went to, just because of relationship, and it was easy. And they asked us to do that, and then we started going into whichever schools would ask us. And yeah, it was both private and public.
Okay, and give me a snapshot of what that would look like? How would a teenage girl growing up in Tallin get recruited or seduced into the lifestyle of being a prostitute, into the sex trade?
Well, the pimps and the madams will generally look for a certain type of girl, a victim mentality girl, somebody who's come from maybe a dysfunctional family, somebody who they feel that they can manipulate and threaten and do whatever they need to do to keep her under their thumb so they can continue to make money off of her. So first of all, they look for a particular type, and they will just go after them, and they will use several methods. One of them they call the boyfriend method. The pimp or the person that secures them will act as if they love them and want to take care of them, but then they'll just turn the tables and start using them. One other method is they entice them with the money, look how much money you can make, or trick them. One really common way is they'll tell them, we would like you to start doing exotic dancing, and they sign a bunch of contracts, and turns out it's a lot more than just dancing, but they've already signed their life away, and they're stuck, and it's real hard to get out. All of this, the whole realm of trafficking and prostitution is easy to get into and extremely hard to get out of. And that's what the girls are not aware of. They think that some of them think that it's just quick money. I'm just going to get in, make a lot of money, and get out when I'm ready, when I don't need the money anymore. A lot of students find themselves getting sucked into this because they're trying to pay off student loans, thinking that they can just get out of it, but they can't. A lot of threatening is used by the pimps and the madams, saying, if you get out, we'll go after your family. And a lot of these ladies will attain some kind of an addiction in order just to survive their daily life, alcohol or drugs, and then they have to make money to pay. So it becomes a very vicious circle there.
Yeah, it really does sound like it locks them into a death spiral.
It does. It really does. And then there's also the very few that this doesn't happen as often as you think, but there's the ones that are just flat out kidnapped and forced into it. But I discovered that it happens more that it's some kind of trickery or bribery or manipulation or fear tactics that they draw them in.
So it's not like a case of watching the movie that came out a few years ago with Liam Neeson called Taken, where these girls have been kidnapped and now they're sold into slavery and basically become slaves through kidnapping. These are ones who sometimes voluntarily, or either they do it voluntarily or they've been deceived into doing it, but not necessarily kidnapped. That's
true. That does happen. It does happen, but it's not the most common way.
Okay, because sometimes you that's the impression you get these days with all of the media discussion about it, and working there in the Eastern Europe, Central and Eastern European countries, you do see a lot of that. Now in Estonia, is prostitution legal?
Yes, it is. They say it's regulated.
Okay.
Which actually I'm not technically sure what that means, but it is legal to sell your own body, but it's not legal to make a profit off of someone else's body. is
Okay.
being sold. So if the girl chooses to sell herself, she can, but there can be no pimp involved. So if someone is busted, it's the pimp. The girl is not prosecuted for that.
Okay. Now, how did you get started in this?
Well, the first time I ever realized that I had a heart for it, we were actually on a vacation with Brett's whole family, had taken us to Hawaii. And I had accidentally stumbled on a street at night, late at night, because it was so warm and it seemed safe to me to go walking at night. And I stumbled onto a strip that was just full of prostitutes. And I was just walking among them. I recognized right away who they were, but I'd never been close to one in real life, only seen him on TV. And I walked up and down the street, and one thing I remember is that I had no fear. I was not repulsed. I was not, the only feeling I had towards them was compassion. And I remember looking at them and thinking, they're so beautiful. These girls could be doing anything they want with their life. How did this happen to them? And why isn't somebody helping them change this? And from that moment on, I couldn't shake it. I knew I had to do something to help these ladies. I just didn't know how, what, when, or where. And that was a long time ago. That was probably 20 years after that incident is when the Butterfly Project actually came to be. And when that happened, I had just, like I said, tried to keep my mind and my heart open to God whenever he was going to do something. And when we first came on the mission field, I still had that attitude. Yeah, someday I'm going to do this. And one day God spoke really clearly to me, and he said, stop saying someday you're going to do something and just do something. Yeah. And I said, but I can't, what do I do, God? I don't have a degree. I don't speak the language here. I've never been a prostitute. What do I do? And I just knew that it didn't matter what I did. If I would just take the first step and trust him, he would take care of the rest. And it was so clear to me that I couldn't, there was no way I could not do that. I had to do what he said. So I did. And the first thing I started doing was knocking on doors and anything that had anything to do with rehab in that country, and everybody said no until I got to this one rehab center in Tallin where they finally said yes with huge open arms, and all they wanted me to do was come in and start practicing conversational English with the girls to help them with future jobs and stuff. And so I started doing that, and they pretty soon started asking me to do more things like helping them interpret contracts that came in English that the girls would be being asked to sign for exotic dancing in another country, like say take them to Finland and do exotic dancing, but really it was a lot more than that. And they wanted me to read the contracts to the girls and interpret them because they're always in English before they would sign anything. And I also helped them with some English like grants and different things. So they gave me more responsibilities. And then one day I was watching What Not to Wear, this TV show, and they had a former exotic dancer on the show, and I was watching it, and I watched this girl go through her whole transformation, and at the end she looked like a new person, and she's looking at herself in the mirror, and she said, almost with tears in her eyes, she said, I didn't know I was beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said to myself, wow, why can't I do that for the girls that I'm working with at the center? And as soon as I said it, I knew, well, there's no reason I can't do that. I can do that. And so I presented it to the center, and they were thrilled with the idea. And thus was born the Butterfly Project. I just started collecting all of the items I needed, like clothing and makeup, and I started talking to everybody I could think of, and whenever I talk about it, I just get kind of overflowing with passion, and it's kind of contagious, and people started getting excited and wanting to help me, and pretty soon I had 3 salons that were willing to volunteer their time and all their products for free, and they would do the hair. I had 3 makeup artists, the same thing, and one of them was from MAC Cosmetics, who generously volunteered to support us and provide all the makeup for free for us, and that's very good makeup. I contacted like an arts college, and I asked if there were any fashion design students who'd be interested in dressing these ladies, and I had an overwhelming flood of women. So I've got a whole bank of
wow.
just awesome girls who want to help dress these ladies, and they just do it from their heart and with compassion and with great skill.
So you've been able not only to reach these people that have had their lives destroyed, you've also been able to mobilize an army of heroes,
Yeah.
of people who are willing to give of their time and their resources to help these women rediscover the beauty that God had intended for them.
It's true. It's exactly right. And I don't mind if the people who are on my team, the volunteers I don't mind if they're not believers, because I believe that God might even have a plan for them in all of this.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen some evidence of that, and that's been pretty exciting. One day we were at the center and sitting around there, and one of the psychologists at the center came out and just walked right up to me and very abruptly said to me, "Is it true that the Bible says that prostitutes are sinners, or prostitution is a sin?" And I really fast said, "Oh God, please help me answer this question right." And I opened my mouth, and thank goodness out came the Holy Spirit, and it was a really good answer, better than I could have answered. And we had this wonderful conversation about what God says about sin and people and his love and his grace and his redemption. And it was such a good conversation that pretty soon out came another psychiatrist who overheard us and came out and joined the conversation. And the next thing I knew, all four of those social workers or psychiatrists or psychologists were we were all sitting around the same room on the couches having this conversation about what does God think about sin and people who sin. And it was really awesome.
That's great. Because so many people have this idea that we as Christians serve a God who's looking for anyone who would dare to have a good time. And if he finds them, he's going to put a stop to it right away.
Right.
And so they always think we're obsessed with sin. And the reason we hate sin is because it is destructive to the person.
Yeah.
And Jesus came to give them life and give it to them in more abundance.
Right.
As you've been doing this, could you tell me maybe one or two stories about some victories that you've seen? Maybe some of the ladies whose lives have begun a transformation process?
Yes, gladly. I'll just make up a fake name for them because I have to watch the confidentiality. But I'm going to say the very biggest, most important reason why I started the Butterfly Project is because I wanted these ladies to experience the healing and the transformation that Jesus could give them. I watched them get really wonderful help at the center they were at, psychologically and socially and otherwise, but they weren't even touching on the spiritual aspect at all. And I knew that these ladies could only go so far until they let Jesus heal them. And there was not going to be any full healing until that happened. And I just wanted a way in to tell them that and give them an opportunity to experience how amazing it was to feel Jesus touch them and remove the pain and the shame and all the stuff that they could know. There's no other way it could go away fully. So when we do put a lady through the Butterfly Project, it takes 3 days to do it. And on the third day, we invite them to join us in a group that we started that's populated with only the ladies who've been through the Butterfly Project. And it's like a Bible study it's like a Bible exploration class. And we've done several different things in it. But anyway, it's just introducing them to Jesus and what the Bible says. And so one woman that we had, she was very enthusiastic and just so thankful for every stitch of clothing we gave her. And she just absorbed everything we had to offer for her inside and out. And she was just a beautiful, beautiful woman. And at the end, we asked her, we said, so if this has been a good experience for you and you don't want it to stop and you want to continue, and will you consider coming to this group and let God start working on the inside of you, because there's so much more. And she was so thrilled with that she said, yes. And can I bring 2 of my friends, because they're still on the street right now, but I think they need your Jesus too.
Wow.
that particular one has gone on to, at the time that she first started at the center, she was just a mess, but she had I think she was one of the ones who started into prostitution to pay for her school, and she couldn't finish her school. She was too messed up. But she has since started back up in her school again. She's studying to be a marketing. She's studying marketing, and she's doing really, really well. I see her all the time. She actually now volunteers at the center herself to try and help women who've been where she was. And she comes to our group, and she's not saved yet, but that's all right. God knows what he's doing there. Yeah. And so that's a big success story to me. She's so full of joy now. Very sweet girl.
That's incredible. And, I love your story. You started out talking about how you had no skills, you had no training for this. You just had something that God had put in your heart more than 20 years ago. And that it all began with God speaking to your heart, just do something. And, so many times we see people out there saying, oh, I would love to do this, or I wish we could do that. And somebody's got to do something about something. And you just said, okay, I'm somebody, I can do something. And you started where you were at. And now look at where it's grown to. Now, as you see where it's at now, where it's come, do you have a sense of where it might be heading in the future? Where do you see things going?
Yeah. Well, first of all, before I answer that question, let me just comment on what you just said. I've discovered through this whole journey that there's one thing I really understand about God now that I didn't before, and that was if he finds a person who's filled with passion for something that he's passionate about, which is people. Right. And if he finds a person with passion who's willing to trust him, he can do a lot with that. Right. And I feel like that's who I was. That's all I had, and that's who I was, but that's what he was looking for. And it didn't matter how much I didn't have in me. It just mattered that I had those two things, and I was willing to let God do what he wanted with those, and he did a lot.
Yeah, that's
a lot. So from here, we see we have recently stopped working with the center that we were working with before because they've had some transition in their center, and it just wasn't what we were doing didn't fit into their program anymore. So we got before God. When I say we, I mean me and my ministry partner, because when I started this, I asked God to please bring a national alongside of me from the very beginning, because I knew I didn't know how long I'd be there. So I now have one really awesome young woman by the name of Hannah who leads this with me, and it's her baby as much as it is mine. So when God calls us somewhere else, then she still carries it on. So we don't work with the center anymore, but we still have a good relationship with them. There's nothing bad there. So we decided that in order to start, we have to figure out some way that we have clients now to work with. We don't have them to refer somebody to us. So we have started going out on the streets ourselves, because that's how they started. And so we go out every other Friday night onto the street where the girls work, and we bring them hot coffee and homemade muffins. And we just have started building a relationship with them. And one night when we were out there, Hannah just had this brilliant idea that we should get a washing machine in our facility. And because we discovered a lot of the girls are homeless, and they just live in these abandoned buildings, which are plentiful in Tallin. Mm-hmm. And they don't have no water at all. They can't take a shower. They can't wash their clothes. And they really, really need to do that in what they do. And so we saw a huge need there. And we thought, okay, if we can get a washing machine. Here in Europe, it takes 2 hours to do a load of laundry. So we have this girl for 2 hours, and we can sit there in our office and we can feed her sandwiches. We can talk to her. We can pray with her. We can share the Bible with her. And we just thought that was so great. So I started I got excited about that and shared it at a women's Bible study that I lead in my flat. And one of the ladies raised her hand really fast, and she said, when you're ready, I want to donate that washing machine to you. So we got a brand new washing machine coming to us.
Wonderful.
So that's one new thing that we're excited about doing. And we also have some hopes and dreams for this butterfly project that are a little bit farther down the road. I can't say that we have anything in progress for this right now, but this is where we believe God's leading it, and he'll make it happen. We know. We don't have any doubt about that. But right now we're looking for a new space because we've just grown out of the space that we were in before, and we were sharing it with another ministry, and we just need a bigger space. So we've been looking for that, and we've discovered that the city offers buildings to nonprofits at a very, very inexpensive price. So we can get into something much bigger and give us much more things, like have our washing machine and like have a couple of beds in there for emergency when somebody can't get into the shelter right away and they have to have an emergency place to sleep. We also are going to start having counseling there because she has her master's degree in social work, so we can offer that, and we feel like down the road we will be able to offer everything that the center that we worked with offered. So we will be a full service center.
Wonderful. So if there's someone out listening to this right now that's their heart resonates and says, I'd like to be part of that, would that be something that they could contribute to? I mean, is that something you're needing to raise funds for to get it up and running?
Yes, absolutely. We are going to need funds because we have to furnish this place. So we will need funds to buy beds and whatever we need to furnish a new place, some office furniture, some computers, things like that. Okay. So yes, we definitely do need that, and there's ways to contribute to that.
Wonderful. And so if somebody wanted to connect with you and say, hey, you know what, I'm on your team. I'll be at whatever level that they can, whether it's through prayer, through helping you spread the word, or maybe coming over for to be part of the team on site, or to contribute financially. How would they what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Okay, great. I think the best way to do that is just to contact me at my personal email, and I can send you information according to whatever it is that you feel like you want to help with. It might be down different avenues. So if anybody would care to connect with me, they can do so on our Butterfly Project Facebook page, or they can contact me directly at my email, which is tltoft@mac.com.
Great.
Is that going to be listed somewhere, Jeff, or should I say that again slower?
Say it again slower, but we will put it in the show notes.
Okay. It's T as in Tammy, L as in Louise, Toft, my last name, at Mac, and that's MAC.com.
Very good. And then we'll include links in the show notes as well for your Facebook page and for your email address so that people can get connected with you, because I love what you're doing, wanted to highlight it, showcase it, brag about you, because Debbie and I just are thrilled with what God is doing through you guys, that you are touching people who have had their humanity stripped to beyond ways that most of us could ever imagine. And you are seeing them being restored, that our God is a God who restores the broken, brings healing. It's not just a sermon, it's really a true message, and you guys are living it every single day of your life.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about it.
Well, it's been a real joy. Well, that wraps it up for today. God bless you guys. Well, we're done now. Thanks for listening. This is Jeff Roper reminding you that the mission of God is too grand for mediocrity or average living. You were created for a purpose, and that purpose is found in the mission of God. It's your life. Now go live it.